Oh my gosh, Montel, what happened in your head? Look at that, brother.
I
Listen,
don't know,
team.
man. You got me
I
in
got you.
Lars.
I got you. Well, large and in charge, brother. Large and in charge. Montel Allen, how you living today, brother?
Man, blessed man as usual, man. Excited about today's show.
Yes.
Happy the beautiful day in California. Gonna talk about some really interesting stories that's going on. We got a great guest today, obviously. And just man, all the way happy, man. It's a great Wednesday,
See, there you
that
go.
hump day.
Well, listen, I'm gonna be like I told you already. I'm gonna be in San Diego tomorrow,
Yes.
so we may have a little impromptu team no sleep meetup somewhere. I'm
Yes,
gonna
sir.
put that out
Yes,
there
sir.
in the universe, just for folks to know, right here and there. So, listen, this is what we do, y'all. It's May 17th, 2023. Team no sleep. Social impact of sport. I know the Eastern Conference Finals games is going on right now. We're gonna keep you updated. What's going on? The Celtics is trying to do something game one, 66-57 halftime. We'll see what happens. Los Angeles tried to do something last night. It
Hmm.
was close. It was close. It got interesting. I was at the gym and then I saw that it got pretty close, but eventually them Nuggets did what they had to do up in that atmosphere. So let's go ahead and keep moving on, man. You bring on the guests. You tell the folks who we got sitting behind the scenes, so you can kind of set the precedence, and we'll let them actually say who they are more.
Yeah, this is a gentleman that we have to give him his flowers. One of the greatest linemen to play for the San Diego Chargers. Played in the era where football was unbelievable with the greats like Junior Seau. Believe on the tail end of his career, Dave Thompson was there. He just played with a lot of great players, great personality out here in San Diego. He's a guru in high school football and what's going on out here. And he's the president of the San Diego Strike Force Indoor Football League, doing a lot of big things. And I want to definitely get his perspective, and not only as a player, but as an owner and as a person that's running the ship on how he feels about some of these social impact stories. So without further ado, bring on my big man, Burt Grossman.
My goodness, he brought
Thank
you
you,
on pretty
gentlemen.
nice, huh? Coach
Hey,
Hey,
man,
Grossman.
I'm
hey,
not a guru in high school football. Come on, man.
man, you know a lot. You're there. You give observations just like we do. Me and you agree with a lot of the players and a lot of their potential.
You know why
We've
though?
always discussed it.
Because
So,
I watch you when you're on with Paul Rudy on Tuesday. I watch
yeah.
that and I just regurgitate what you said on Friday. I do.
So I mean, no, but honestly, I think you give a unique perspective, especially to the student athletes that are coming up in San Diego. Not only at the high school level, but also some insight on the collegiate level, and you bring your expertise from being a professional player to them, just kind of sharing your insight. And I think we don't understand or appreciate enough that the personality in which you bring to the table sometimes, because we overlook it because San Diego's so used to it, the spoiled audience. But I
Uh,
don't, a lot of people. But you got to think, a lot of communities don't have what we have in San Diego with the PPR, and you being a
no,
part of that,
absolutely.
you're doing a good thing. So I think you always got to give roses to those people too, because you don't have to do it. You don't have to be there. You could be doing something else and be more entrenched, but you do cut out a carve of your time to be there for the youth. So I always, as a parent and a coach, a former coach, high school coach, I really do appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love it. Coach, Montel knows you. I know you by 48 hours. I think folks are probably looking at you and saying, wait a minute, I may recognize this dude. And we gave you the 35,000 foot kind of introduction, but I always like to have person give their origin story. And Coach, if you could tell our audience who it is that you are and what it is that you've done in your past from an athletic perspective, if you don't mind.
Oh, how far you want to go back? We're going back all the way to high school.
Listen, we got all kind of tape. We can roll for days. We can roll for
Well, you know
days.
what? What people don't know. I almost didn't go to college to play football. I almost went as a shot putter, believe it or not. I
Mm.
had to choose my senior year between football and shot put, and went on visits for track, and then went on visits for football, and it was a much different atmosphere when you're a football player on a college campus than a shot putter. So that was the day I decided I was going to go with football. But I did visit both for schools and had to decide which one because no schools would let me do both. And that's probably the story nobody knows, but that's a story I don't tell too often.
That's awesome. Can you tell me which college you went to, Coach?
University of Pittsburgh. I'd
I know that.
originally, I'd originally committed to West Virginia. Um,
Oh,
I think my visits were Georgia, Ohio State, West Virginia, Pitt, and there was another one. I can't remember what the other, Maryland, I think at the time. It was Bobby Ross was the coach.
okay.
Um, and I committed to West Virginia, but then it was before my visit. I went on my official visit, and then I don't know if you've ever been to Morgantown in mid-'80s in the winter, and oh man, I was there for 2 nights for a weekend, and then like immediately just backed out of it, and then decided I wanted to go to Pitt. I grew up in the city in Philadelphia, so a lot of the schools, it wasn't like now you couldn't go on the internet. So you had
Mm-hmm.
to go on your visit. You had to see what it's like. So I'd get to Georgia, and that was just a whole different world for me growing up in Philadelphia. Athens, Georgia, I couldn't handle it. West Virginia, same thing. So it really wasn't. I mean, for me, I really wanted to go to a city school, so it was going to be Temple was okay then. Bruce Arians was the head coach at Temple at the time, but I kind of want to leave home, so I ended up going to Pittsburgh, which was still in Pennsylvania, 5 hours away, but still inside the city that I was used to. I couldn't handle like Penn State or the country towns. It was just too much for me.
Yeah, see, I was going to think Penn State would have been your number one choice, but now thinking back in the '80s, Pittsburgh was pretty hot, very talented team. You guys were up and coming, right? Because at that point in the '80s, Miami obviously was the number one guru, and then Georgia had their guys. But you guys were up and coming.
Yeah,
I think Marino had just got finished playing. Am I correct? Or was he still there, or he just
he
got finished
was.
playing?
No, he was 83, and I got there in 85, so he just got done playing.
Just
They
got
went
done,
to
yeah.
the Yeah, I think they went to the Fiesta Bowl the year before, so they were a top team. I mean,
Mhm.
it was funny because at the time they thought they would just fall for a little bit and be back, but it's been 30 years and they're just starting to come back now. But um, it was an interesting place. Penn State. It's funny you say that. I was heavy with them for a while, and I asked Joe Paterno for some money because back then you'd ask for money. Remember that was during SMU and those times, and he was not having that. And oh my God, he straight ghosted me right after that. But that was, I don't think I would have went there anyway. And they had won the national championship, I want to say, a year or so before. So they were getting whoever they wanted.
Mhm.
Notre Dame had Jerry Faustin, so they were really down. So people were kind of shying away from them. So yeah, at the time it was more regional. I got offers at UCLA, but it wasn't everything in between. You wouldn't get offers for. We were mostly
Mhm.
SEC. There was no ACC. It was Big East back then. So
Yep.
it was a whole different scope of recruiting. And you had to
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
see what you're getting. There was no TikTok or anything else to see these schools or anything.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because the platform I was just discussing today, the platform of recruiting has changed since just last year to this year. I can
Yeah,
only imagine. I can imagine from the '80s till now, especially at the big time. I was a small school recruit, D2, maybe Division I AA. But being at the big time, I know that landscape was cool. Like you said, you had to go on your trips. You actually had to build that relationship with those coaches. You actually had to talk to coaches, right? On the phone,
yeah.
discuss things,
On
discuss
the
your future. Yeah.
not the cell
These kids
phone
now,
either. Yeah, the rotary
yeah,
phone.
yeah, no cell phone. You got to make sure you're at home by 6:30 to get the phone call, so you can talk to the coach and have those conversations. So, I I know kids nowadays they just move fast. They're just old heads, but I mean they got to understand the process is so much different now, and it's so much faster than it was back then, and the exposure, right? All the exposure and everything. And
Yeah,
I say now, kids are more addicted to the exposure than they are actually playing football because they they're
yeah,
they're out there
Wow.
doing this Twitter clicks.
yeah. They want to be seen, but it's funny you say that because I was the number one defensive lineman in high school coming out that year for the country,
Mhm.
but coaches still had to fly in and watch a film on the projector. I mean, you weren't pulling up anything. I mean, they had to actually. So they would come and there'd be 5 or 6 there a day. They would come from all over because there was no other way. If you wanted to see the
Mhm.
player, you had to go in there, wind up that film on the two reels and go in the the coach's classroom and watch it on the wall in black and white. That's how they did it.
Mhm. Yeah, I know. And now they're so spoiled, right? You send a link. You hope a coach follows you back and he talks to you via Twitter,
Yeah,
especially if it's dead period. They only talking to you via Twitter. They're making your flight arrangements and everything via Twitter for you to come out there and go look at the campus and then come back. And now the NCAA has made it now the Wild Wild West. There is no limit on visitations. You can visit as many schools as you want now. There is no limit or really pretty much on contact except for dead period, but they figured out a way to work around dead period through Twitter. It's just a whole different vibe, man. And like I said, I think kids are more addicted to the attention and more focused on the attention than they are actually playing football. But that's why we see so many kids that are supposed to be these 5, 4, 3 star athletes that filter out in college, or they got to transfer right away because they're not the player they either thought there was, or they're not up to the competition anymore. So I
yeah.
think they're really addicted to the attention. A lot of kids are addicted to the attention, in my opinion.
I think it's a generational thing too. I mean, like I said, I was the number one defense lineman in the country. When I got to Pitt, I wasn't the number one defensive lineman anymore, but it wasn't, I mean, you sit there and you take your bumps and you get beat up. And then, I ended up starting a couple games my freshman and then starting the next 3 years. But nowadays I would have just transferred. I would have been, I'm out of here. But we would have had to sit a year and everything else, and nobody wants to do that. Head coach
Yeah.
got fired right after my freshman year, so everybody that recruited me left.
Mhm.
I mean, most people would leave then, and I probably would have if it was today. But we kind of dealt with adversity better back then because we were forced to. Now nobody's forced to deal with it anymore. Just leave.
Now, before we go on, James, do you think that makes you a better player, not dealing with that adversity, or a worse player, especially as you're climbing up the ladder in those levels? Because we know if you're not that player in high school actually got to transition to college, which is going to get a lot more difficult. That transition from college to the pros are going to be a lot more difficult as well. But we know in the pros, the money factors involved, and it's a whole different ball game as far as it's a profession now at that point, so you can be fired from your job. In college, just kind of got a little bit more leeway, even though it's leaning towards that way. That kids not going through that adversity, in your opinion, does it hurt them or help them?
It's a hard question because a lot of kids, it's just not a good fit and they don't realize till they get there. And if it's not a good fit, it's not about adversity. You need to leave. The other thing was it was different back. There was no transfer portal. So I'd come in and there's 25 freshmen. We're a group. We're hanging out. We're together. Now you come in, what you got, like 3 or 4 of you, and the rest are like 26-year-old transfers from across there's no, there's no common bonding group that you can be with or a support group, because a lot of kids, I think there was only 3 of us that didn't get redshirted, but we all hung out together. But if I went now, there's not 25 freshmen anywhere in an incoming class. I think they feel a little more isolated now. So, they're away from home. There's nobody their own age there. I'm playing against a bunch of dudes that are, that Stetson guy from Georgia. He's older than me. I mean, I won't walk in there as an 18-year-old high school kid. I mean, how do I compete with that? Or why would I want to compete with that?
True. Yeah, I think you're right. I think the client, and I can attest to my son, he played as a true freshman at his school. Both of my sons played as true freshmen. And this is the story my son says all the time. He goes on his first road trip. Everybody leaves the hotel and does whatever they want to do. He can't. There's nowhere for him to go. He's 17 years old in a room by himself. His roommate is another running back who's 22. The other running back's 24.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, the only thing he has in common with them is football. So it's bizarre that you're right, that gap is there. But I also believe, in retrospect, that we got to build a little bit of adversity, because things are going to get tougher in life as you get along. And if you're always running or switching, you got to kind of deal with it, even if the chips aren't in your favor, right? Even if, like you said, it's not maybe a perfect fit, it's not the ideal situation. Sometimes you got to force it to make it the ideal situation, in my opinion. You have to force the hand to put yourself in a situation to play. We can't always run, and I see more kids now running, as we can see via the portal. There's 16,000 kids in the portal.
Yeah,
running more than dealing with the situation, because now that 16,000, a lot of those kids aren't going to get picked up. There's not 16,000 jobs available. When you had a job and you just left it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and you get it. You get the same. I mean, look at Barry Sanders was behind Thurman Thomas, greatest running back ever. I mean, he could have walked up and left, but if you're that guy, you're going to be that guy. It might be a year later than you want it to be, or you might not be. But if you're meant to go, you have the talent to go to the pros. If you don't get hurt, most likely you're going to go. Whether it's 1 year you got off at the end, or whether it's 3 or 4. I mean, I wish I would have played till my last year. You could have saved me 4 years of Division I wear and tear. I would have loved to just play 1 year like sat the bench and then go my senior year and play. I would have loved to get drafted like these dudes and sit for 3 years and then go start instead of you have to start the first game. I held out the whole camp. I walked in on a Friday and the game was Sunday, and I had to start Sunday. I mean, I would have loved to do 2 years. I mean, that's 2 more years my body doesn't get wrecked.
That's awesome. Wow. All right, James, hit us with the moderation, baby.
Listen, no, this is on point. I love this, and I think I want to switch up a little bit. So I'm gonna throw this curveball, right, and go into kind of what Coach is doing with the indoor football league right now, because we wanted to talk, and the XFL championship just wrapped up. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about NFL versus indoor football league versus XFL, and where these all kind of fit, I think, in the discussion, because all of us fans we love it. I'm just going to say that, right? We love what's out here and what's being offered to us. But coming from head coach now president of the Indoor Football League, for San Diego. Let's talk a little bit about that and what you see kind of similarities with the XFL and things of that nature, and Inside Football League as well. I'm gonna call you
You
coach.
know,
I'm not gonna call you.
all right. No,
I'm just gonna
go
call
ahead.
you coach because that's just what it is today. So okay, let's go.
That's all right. That's all right. It's it's hard to explain because people ask this all the time. But all the players come from college, so they play 12-on-12 regular football.
Hmm.
They all want to go to the next level. We do have an agreement or a partnership with the XFL to trade players, or they can take our players. They have rights to our players at any time. So I might lose. We have a game Sunday at Sports Arena. I might lose a player, not now because it's over, but say they was still going. I might lose a starter of the XFL the day before, and we can't do anything about it. But I don't know if you've been to one of the games. It's 8-on-8, and the reality is they're not as fast as the NFL. They're not as talented as the NFL. So I think a lot of it is to make the field narrow and shorter.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you're playing in a phone booth. So everybody looks 10 times faster than they are. Because your eyes are telling you it's a football field, but it's much smaller. So you're like, wow, he got to the flat really quick, and it's like, yeah, that's 2 steps. But where it's 10 on a regular field. So I think it's a lot of illusion there, but they are quick, and it isn't a phone booth, and everybody looks quick. Even the big, slow linemen look quick in this league, just because of the small space.
So that's a
Now,
good. I'm gonna say that
yeah.
because I play indoor softball, right? Adult league. And listen, I'm 50-something. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am completely, but us old cats out here have to play indoor softball right now, and it's the exact same kind of thing, right? A lot faster, shorter, less distance to run and hurt yourself. So I just wanted to give that comparison. What were you gonna say, Martel?
No,
It
I'm
ain't
saying
faster.
I
It
think
looks faster.
There you go. It just looks faster, right? I've still pulled a lot of tendons and muscles.
I think the interesting dynamic is when you go from you have the indoor league, which we've seen what Kurt Warner came from indoor football, arena
Mm-hmm.
football,
Yeah.
same thing, made to the league. I think now the transition, the way the platform is laid out now, it's indoor football. It's college. The ones that don't make it to those leagues, it's now indoor football. From indoor football, you make the jump to either USFL or XFL, depending on which one you go to. Obviously, XFL is the one you have the partnership, so they wanted to go there first. Then from there, you have the development part of there, and then go. I think the biggest thing is development, right? Used to we could develop players. Now we don't, and even in college, there's very small room for development. You got to be ready now. Do you see that the platform that's been laid out now? XFL, USFL, indoor football is all development process to hopefully to get you to that next level, or we figure out where you cap off at it and you can't make it.
That's because there's always exceptions. I mean, Kurt Warner, a lot of people, but it's hard again because development goes
Yeah.
from we go back to the transfer portal. You used to come out of college. I've had 4 years or 5 years with this staff, this weight training, this offense, this everything else, and now it's every year I'm in a new. I'm starting over every year. I'm in a new thing. So whatever I learned last year, I got to change up this year. I mean, imagine being a golfer and every year you have a new coach and you change up your swing every year. I mean, that's almost what it seems to be now, but to be honest with you, I mean, the NFL is so elite. There's going to be a lot of leagues like that, but those guys are on a whole different level. I mean, it's not even
Yeah.
close. I mean, if I was to take Barry Sanders or anybody, I mean, Dan Marino, and put him in any of these leagues, it would be a slaughter. Warren Moon, anybody.
Yep.
It's just it's just an elite level. It's really different. It's not even close, to be
I,
honest with you. And you
you
see
know what's
some
funny,
guys,
Burt?
Kurt Warner, but you see a lot of guys that'll get there and they might make the team for a week or two or special teams. But the greatest player in these leagues, they can't even make the practice squad in the NFL.
Wow.
And it's not
Exactly.
a ding against them. It's just a higher level.
I think that's funny that you say that because that's the reality people need to hear, especially when they have kids that are playing
Mm-hmm.
sports. I think parents always we discuss it all the time. Kids that are playing high school ball, I'm Division One, I'm D1, I'm D1, I'm D1. No, you're not D1. That's a different level, and you're definitely not SEC Power 5 D1.
Yeah,
Those
that's
are
a different level.
those are different animals. Those are different animals in the game that are playing. And for you to say that now, these guys, like you said, they finish with college, they got somewhat development, they go to these smaller leagues, and again, the NFL is the elite of the elite. Those are 53 men on the roster that are the best, and those 9 practice players are the guys next lined up to become the best because they possess something special. I think kids need to understand it. And I'm not knocking any of the leagues, but the lower level leagues, because I think if you get paid in the XFL or USFL, making $60,000 for 4 months is not a bad paycheck at all. Those are pretty good paychecks. So I think if they can get in, I think that's a great accomplishment goal. But people need to realize NFL is a different animal than just playing football. And you're a kid that's in high school, you're not necessarily going to develop to be that guy unless you're special.
Yeah, and it's not. I mean, you said it with Georgia. You turn on. I mean, and not a knock against anything, but I can go to a San Diego State game, and then if I go home and turn on a Georgia game, I think I'm looking at something totally different. And then Alabama and Georgia are playing. You're looking at those guys, and they're on a different level. Most of them aren't making the NFL. So,
Yep.
I mean, it's that high a level. I can tell you, like I said, when I first started, when I held out of camp, I signed on a Friday, had to start on a Sunday. I came from Pittsburgh. I had to go to the Coliseum. Didn't know what smog was. No idea what smog was. It was 90 degrees in smog. And I literally look in the backfield, and this is my second day in a uniform, and it's Bo Jackson and Marcus Allen. I mean, dudes you grew up with, that you idolize, and that's when you know you're on a different level. It's not even, I mean, those dudes, you could have blocking cones in front of you, and you really don't have a chance to get them half the time unless you have the right angle. So people just don't realize the different level, even though they have the lower levels we call spring football. The worst team in the NFL would beat the brakes off an all-star team of them to a level I couldn't even explain. And it's not a knock on them. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. But see, people are honest. You're being honest.
Yeah.
People are not honest. First, they're not honest with themselves, and they're not honest with their kids. That's the biggest issue I've always found, especially when it comes to the recruiting game, which is kind of the same magnet. You're not honest with your kids and what you got. You're not honest. You're just not honest with your kids, and kids are not honest with themselves. If you're 5'9", 160, and you're not running a 4.3, you're not at that level. You're just not.
Yeah.
Because there are kids that are 5'9", 160, running a 4.3, that can play at that high level. I think that's the illusion that people have been given, and I think that's where all these services and people talk to them. They paint this glass ceiling that they can crack and they can't. So it's a disappointment. College is just a different beast, man. Now I just don't. With the portal now, it's basically free agency all over again. Kids leave and go wherever they want to. But like I said in the beginning, I think it's taken away a lot of kids' character because they're not building that resilience when things get tough. So
and I agree with that. But again, you can't sit there. I mean, we say that because we're old, but you imagine being in college and they're like, "Hey, come here and you can have $800,000 in NIL money." I would have transferred 11 times if they'd let me.
In a minute.
Seriously, but I mean, how do you say no to that at 18, 19 years old?
That's true. That's absolutely true. It's a different ballgame when it comes to the NIL money.
And the other reality, Montel, we talked about before, is it's such an elite level to get to the NFL to make that kind of money. If you can get some NIL money to pad your pockets in case you don't make it, you should take it.
Oh, I agree. Now, with that being said, do you feel the NIL needs to be restructured? Because the way it is right now, I don't think it's done right, because you're just letting kids go ahead and sign what they want to and do all these different things, which I think is great for them to get their money. I always felt the NIL should be built into when you graduate. If you graduate from the university, you should get the money. If you don't graduate from the money, you forfeit the money, because the bottom line is we are providing. People say, "Oh, it's an institution." It is a school. It's a school. You're here to go to school, whether you want to believe it or not, and play football. We know football is your presence is number one because it's the money maker and it's demanding so much of your time. But we need you to graduate as well. And if you graduate, you get money, because the ones that don't graduate, they usually go off to the elite ones, and the ones that don't, hey, you had an opportunity to finish school. If you wanted to leave school and you cut out, that's your business. You're going to forfeit some money. I think it provides another avenue for the kids, the ones stay, the ones that don't make it, and get that piece of paper, instead of everyone saying, "I'm gonna get this NIL money. I'm gonna leave early. I don't make it. Okay, I still got this money. I basically just used the school for 2 years and got out." I don't think that's the precedence we want to set, in my opinion.
I don't. To be honest with you, I don't believe the NIL numbers I see. I don't think that's what it is. I mean, you see these valuations of $1.2 million for these kids. I don't think they get it, to be honest with you. And if you do get it, what's the culture in your locker room among 18, 19, 20-year-olds when I'm getting $14,000, whether you're better or not? And man, it's dangerous enough to get a kid $1 million in college. I mean,
that's what I said. We said it all the time.
We talk about that all the time. Let's go into that, right? Because that right there is a conversation that we talk about a lot of time. You get someone coming 17, 18, 19, coming from nothing, and you give them $50,000 to go buy groceries at the local Ralph's.
Yeah.
Their mindset completely changed. And are they going to listen to you when you out there coaching them? Are they going to listen to you when you out there trying to teach them how to play the game the right way, right? I mean, what is that conversation for you as a president of an organization, of a professional football organization? What is the conversation for you also when you were like a coach, right? To being able to talk to those folks coming from nothing and now have all this cash in their pocket for doing nothing.
Man, our players
Name,
don't
image,
make
and
no money.
likeness.
Well, no, I'll give you. They don't make no money. Come on, I'll give you an example. But this happened probably 30 years ago. We get Bobby Ross comes in. He's a new head coach. You remember George O'Leary? Coached at UCF. Remember he went to Notre Dame, but they said he lied on his resume. He was our D line coach. He was our D line coach, and he came in. They came from Georgia Tech. So he comes in, and I'm the only white D lineman, so you know he's going to talk to me, right? He don't talk to anybody else because he's come from Georgia. So Leslie O'Neal's giving him just like not even like blowing him water and everything, and then all the other players of D linemen follow. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, what goes on here?" And he had no idea. And I'm like, "Coach, this isn't college. These aren't 18-year-old kids you can yell at anymore. You're talking to millionaires. They're millionaires. They make more money than you. They're sitting here. They're grown men, but they didn't get that until it actually happened to them. So." I mean, you think about it with the NIL, I don't know how an 18-year-old with $1 million, how I could even talk to an 18-year-old $1 million. I can't talk to an 18-year-old with $50. So, I mean, and then on top of that, you say an 18-year-old with $1 million and the ability to walk out and transfer without sitting out a year and go to any school you want that second. How do you handle a kid? How do you handle an adult like that, let alone a kid?
Yeah,
Man,
I agree.
He talking truth right here.
now, so let's take it to one more step further. How is the locker room with that situation? You're a guy with $1 million. I'm a guy with $10 in my pocket.
Yeah.
We already know there's a disparity, there's a mindset, there's a difference in that situation. You over here eating filet mignon, and I can barely afford a hamburger. I got family that's starving at home, and this dude's over here talking trash and he's playing. Does something like that divide a locker room? And I'm saying, I think it does.
That's a loaded
it
question.
Does.
I'm just gonna say that's a.
No, that ain't a loaded question. Because wait, you know how it goes. Unless I can whoop that dude's ass, I better start buying him steak too.
That's true. That's right there. Come on now.
No, I mean it does. It does. But I mean that's how it goes. It's not. I don't know how you do that. And again, this is hard enough to do in a corporate America with salaries or anywhere, let alone 18-year-olds in a locker room competing for girls, competing for playing time, competing for money, competing for video, competing for everything. And at some point, it becomes toxic because you're not on a level playing field anymore. We're all at the same playing field. We're all getting $50 per diem. We're all on the same playing field. You beat me out on a girl or a video game, we're cool. But if you're making $1 million and I'm making 50, and you beat me out of something, it's going to turn toxic and bad real quick.
Yes, I agree. I think it is great. I think we talked about it a long time ago on the show. I think the mechanism that the NCAA and teams aren't prepared for is when that teammate robs that other teammate. It happens now. It happens a lot. People are breaking someone, the roommate, their dorm room, and take somebody and steal it. But I'm talking about when you get to a point of desperation is when your desperation oversees, what's going on. I think you're going to see that more so. It hasn't happened yet, or we haven't heard about it. But it's going to get to a point where a teammate either assaults a player, extorts a player, takes whatever he has, or robs a player. Because you're living in such a drastic dynamic. Like you said, the playing field's not even. I'm making $1 million driving around in a Benz, and I'm 19 years old. Hey, I think I'm better than you, and I don't even like you. I like the way you act. And I'm making $50. I'm like you said, I'm running out of time. I'm not patient enough to get to where you're going to get. I'm taking it now. And that's the attitude a lot of people have.
It's already happened. I mean, we're like, look at Alabama. I mean, it's basketball players getting in shootouts. The head baseball coach is betting on game. I mean, it's already happening. This is like it's like a Wild West now because you're putting so much money in there. Everybody, what's off limits anymore? I mean, we got a baseball coach at an SEC school having his friend put in bets, and he's pulling pictures right before the game. I mean, it's insane. I mean, everything goes on there, but think about that. So you don't think players are robbing from other players? We just didn't hear about it. You think that's the first bet that dude made? No. I mean, it's going on. We just don't hear about it. They keep it in the house. You know how it is in the SEC.
Well, I know how it is anybody, right?
That's how it is everywhere.
Especially SEC.
Let me say this for folks watching. Listen, now you know. So this is the man that's talking right now, y'all. Okay, this is the cover of Sports Illustrated 1990.
I didn't age a day.
Look at it, young man right there. So, golly, big mouth though. We want to keep
Rydell
talking.
helmet. Look at it.
We want to keep talking about that. Let's talk about why the characterization of Big Mouth. What was that all about?
I don't. Yeah. You know what? I was always like that. It's. I mean, you know how Philadelphia is. Philadelphia's like that now. I was like that in Philadelphia. I mean, if you went to any Eagles game, any Sixers game, I
Yes,
mean, they're
sir.
just obnoxious.
Yes, sir.
That
Throw
was
some
just the
batteries
same
at you.
thing. I was obnoxious, born and raised there. Pittsburgh, same thing. It was never a big deal anywhere until I came here, because you get to this laid back, sleepy town, you know, on the beach, and then you say something that you say
I'll be there
normally in
tomorrow.
Pittsburgh, Philly, 100 times, and then all of a sudden I'm Richard Pryor. But it just wasn't that. I didn't change anything. It was just everybody was so laid back here and polite and quiet, and
They
I don't
weren't
know. I
ready
mean,
for you.
you
They
remember when
weren't
Ted
ready for you.
Leitner came here and everybody thought he was crazy? He was a Philly when I was growing up. He was just normal there. He was probably, but he comes here and he's crazy and saying all these crazy things. But it was just a cultural thing. I mean, that would have never come out if I would have played for the Eagles or got drafted by the Steelers or anything else. It was just everybody's so in shock here that you actually said something past the company line of, we're going to win as a team, we're going to give it our best. You know, I'd say somebody sucked. I sucked. Our coach sucks. I said that plenty of times, but just honest things that they said all the time before. But they thought that was something crazy for some reason.
I love this man right here. And let me tell you something, folks, go buy his book.
Oh, Lord.
He wrote it back in 1996. But listen, go get this book, The Way Things Ought to Be
Don't
Told.
get that book. I don't get money for that book no more. Don't go get that book.
What is we can't get a signed copy of I'm gonna put the link in the description anyway. But look at this man right here. The way things ought to be told. So we coming real with Burt Grossman tonight, folks. I had to throw those in there, man. I had to throw those in there. Until we started talking about a couple of things that are in line with some of the stories that we have for tonight. I guess I want to talk a little bit about Ja Morant and why he can't get out his way. What's going on? Why is this man feeling that he still needs to walk around? Nothing wrong with hanging out with your homies. Nothing wrong with you. You're not playing anymore right now. So everybody else is on vacation. So nothing wrong with chilling with your crew and doing that thing. But why do you have the need to brandish a gun?
Film it.
Right. Why do you have to be filmed live video, and why do you have to be carrying a gun all the time? Well, that's two questions, right? Why do you always have to have that voyeurism thing? It's a social media thing about having to be online and video all the time. But then why do you have to have that gun with you? And a lot of folks know, okay, he's got caught again, so he's been suspended for all team activities lately. So he's sitting out by himself again, chilling with his friends because he can't hang out with the Memphis Grizzlies. Coach, what's going on with these athletes? What's going on specifically with Ja Morant?
First, he's 23. That's the first thing. Second, there's a couple folds to this because, I mean, we say it, but there's no cell phones around. I mean, I don't know why you're hanging out with dudes that would film you to put it up there to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Next, they're going like, why don't you film doing a line of coke and put it on Instagram? Like, why are you hanging out with dudes that are posting things like that?
True.
Third, I just don't. I don't know. I can't imagine, again, at that age with that much money. Part of the thing was discipline-wise, we talked about earlier. When I came into the league, I was the 8th pick of the first round. I made $250,000 my first year. It wasn't that long ago. It was long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But you could still control me and a lot of players because I wasn't set for life with $250,000. I had to come back and play the next game. I had to come back and play the next year. You start making $50 million a year, you really don't have to play another year if you don't want to. I mean, think about it. You don't.
That's true.
Unless you want to live that much. But, I mean, he's going to lose a max contract now. But, I mean, just look at the money. You really only have to play 1 year now. And who's going to tell me anything at that point? You could tell me some stuff at $250,000 because I got a mortgage and I ain't paying the $250,000. I got to come back next year. So I ain't going to be doing a line of coke on Instagram. But now it's like, I'm getting $50 million and I'm 2 or 3 years in. And, man, it's like, I don't care. What's the big deal? But I can't relate to it, to be honest with you, because it's just not from where I came up, and not any different because we all kind of are the same no matter how old we are, but we didn't have that kind of money, so I didn't have that kind of freedom. I'll put it that way, because you don't have that kind of money, you don't have that kind of freedom.
Come on now, that's a wow, that's hot right there. So, Montel, let me get your thoughts on this second Ja situation, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about JJ Redick's viewpoint on what happened. So what are your thoughts on what's going on right now?
I'm disappointed, and I'm disappointed again in the circle. We talked about this before. You protect the bag at all costs when in that situation. So with that being said, why would my friends, the people I'm around, allow me to do that? You know, even if I wanted to do that, let's say John's just very immature and wants to do it, I would have my friends should be mature enough to say, you know what, look, man, you can't be doing that. You can't be putting that out there. You know, you saw what happened last time, dog. We can't do that again. Where's the voice of reasoning within his crew? You know, John's already showed us he's immature, right?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care. If he cared, he wouldn't have done it. He wouldn't do it a second time. You know, if you do it one time, okay, you made a mistake. You do it again within months. I mean, it ain't even been. I don't even think it's been 3 months.
Come on, man. You do something else. Don't do this again.
I mean, don't brandish another gun on video live, talking about singing a rap song that has all these lyrics, driving in the car with your boy. That's just got to be the most stupidest thing you could do when you just been through this situation. So with that being said, he lacks a lot of maturity. Number one, period.
Yeah.
But again, where's the voice of reasoning around with his crew and his family and all that, trying to protecting him from himself? That's the part that I'm upset about. And I think John doesn't understand the ramifications of things he's doing. Just because you have money, if you continue to be in that environment, we see what happens. It's happened to Tupac. It happened to Biggie. It happened to Lorenzo Wright, who's from Memphis, that was in Memphis. It happens to Young Dolph. If you try to be in that hip hop world and you brandishing guns in that thing, unfortunately, you're going to attract the wrong type of crowd, and accidents happen and situations happen. We as a public get so mad because we don't want to see that happen to him because we love him as a basketball player.
Yeah.
But no one's protecting Ja from himself, unfortunately.
See,
and that's the sad part.
Yeah, the problem that I have with all this is that his biggest cheerleader, the one who's always at on court side drinking drinks and hugging and kissing all the celebrities, is his daddy. Right, his daddy is his ringleader. Is supposed to be the one who's watching out for him. He's always there. You know, whenever Ja goes to the jewelry store, let me get this watch too, and you would think again that the guidance would come from that man who's right there courtside watching you score all these points, hugging and kissing with all these other folks, getting in fights with Shannon Sharp, right, doing all that stuff. Why not come from there? Coach, let me ask you this, right? Because again, you come from the NFL side, you come from a player side, from a coach, and from an executive side. Do these athletes, young athletes, regardless of the sport, are there folks around and conversations when you come into a league that say, listen, one, let's get these finances right. Two, let's make sure that you got the right people around you so that you don't get caught up in these things. Right? I mean, does that type of conversation, because Montel and I can only assume, but you've been in that locker room, right? Do these types of conversations happen, especially with the star, with the bag, with the one who's responsible for everything?
They happen, but, you know, they don't listen most of the time. I mean, you know what the problem is, and it's been this way since I played? Every athlete wants to be a rapper, a rock star. Every rock star rapper wants to be an athlete, but nobody wants to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? It's always the same thing. So the athletes go try to act like the rapper, the rock star, and the rock star and the rapper want to act like an athlete, but it never turns out good for either side. But it's always been that way. And back, you know, I mean, the difference part was back in the day in the 90s, at least it was gangster rap. Now it's just fake gangster rap. So the dudes, the lifestyle they're pushing out there, they're not even living. It's all fake anyway. So he's going to sit around there driving fake too, and you know, ruin his life and perpetrate off some fake fraud.
Coach over here,
that's the difference
bombs,
for me.
Boy.
Hey, Coach,
Suge Knight ain't out there no more.
Burt, so my question to you is, okay, we see how carrying gun is more of a common thing with athletes now, and we've heard it. Was it common back when you were playing in the league that other athletes have guns? I don't know if they told it or not, but I mean, did they have guns and stuff the same way they have them now? Was it that something that was around?
It was, but to be honest with you, I was in San Diego. Ain't nobody needed a gun in San Diego in the 90s and the 80s. But I mean, you go to Detroit, you might carry a gun or somewhere like that. But in Pittsburgh, a little bit. I've had probably, but not like now. No, not like now where like everybody's got it and they're filming it. And people that had carried guns, you didn't know they carried guns because that was the point of it. They didn't bring it out and wave it around and make a video of it and put it on TikTok. Right. I mean, what's the point of that? So there was, but it was back in the day when I think everybody was a little more discreet, maybe. Like I said, it wasn't like people were doing coke back then, but nobody's doing it and putting it on Instagram at halftime of the game. But I mean, it's just crazy now, but it's like you said, everybody just wants the attention now, or exposure of it, and it's at any cost, and that seems to be more important than anything. Your career, your character, your reputation, anything. As long as I get a 10-second clip that 3 million people watch.
Yeah,
That's
and I'm asking that because we see it in other sports. Well, we just had Deontay Wilder get pulled over with a gun. Heavyweight champion, boxer. This Josh situation 2 times over. I think Steven Jackson said he used to carry a gun when he played. All these athletes are saying, we have guns. It's common. Everyone's always had guns, but not to the point where it is now, where they're brandishing them like, hey, look at me now. Look, I got 2 guns. Put a light. I'm not understanding the mentality. And then 2, what are you carrying a gun for? Like, I know you're a target. Don't get me wrong. I'm not believing.
Yeah.
I know these guys are targets, but why would you put yourself in a position to be a victim when you have money like that? You don't have to put yourself in a position to be a victim, even though you're a target. So my question is, why do you have a gun, and why would you even put yourself in that situation to be there? I'm not saying being a hermit, you don't have to not go to the club, but making $50 million a year, you can bring the club to you.
Listen,
you can scare everybody to come to the club.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, everybody can be in your club butt naked, ready to go with
That's
$50
the
million.
club right there, boy.
Why would you put yourself in that situation? And I don't understand it.
I don't know why you're putting Deontay Wilder in there, man. Come on. He got a gun in case he gets in a road rage fight with Tyson Fury. Like, one dude in the world can kick his ass and he needs a gun because he might run a red light, run into him in a road rage. Oh, that's Tyson Fury. I would give him a gun. But that's a different story. Again, Wilder's carrying it around, not showing it off, not flashing on Instagram, not pointing at people. I mean, he got pulled over. I mean, he's got it. There's probably half the population got it. And if you go down south, probably 80% of the population got a gun in their car. I mean, that's just the way it is.
That's true.
White, black, green, orange, no matter what color you down south, 90% of people got a gun. Gun in their car.
You carrying something
and I don't
just
see
in
anything
case.
wrong with that, but I mean, John's part is there's nothing wrong with it. If you don't play basketball and they got a no gun policy, that's what's wrong with it. Other than that, knock yourself out. You can make videos all day. I would just tell him it was a fake gun. I mean, why would they know? But I mean, his problem, in the JJ Redick thing, all this problem is, he's right. It's not illegal, but it's against their policy. It's your employer's policy.
Yep.
I mean, it's not illegal to take edibles and drive a bus, but if I work for MTS and I take edibles and drive a bus, I'm going to get fired. I'm not going to jail, but I'm going to get fired. Or I'm going to get fined. I might get a half-game suspension. But whatever it is, I mean, that's your employer. They have different rules. It's not the same as the legal system.
Yeah. I agree, 100%.
I think that's where a lot of the conversation, Montel and I continue to scratch our head again. This man, he's 23. He's only 23, but he should know better. And again, difference between right and wrong and whatever common sense is, we looked that up in the dictionary. But come on, man, you making all this money, you responsible for a lot of well-being. You are the superstar on the Memphis Grizzlies, and you put yourself in these types of situations. Yeah, what you did, like JJ Redick said, it's not illegal, but it goes against policy for your employer. It's costing you a lot of money right now because you are removed from the organization. You can't do a lot of things. It's probably going to cost some partnerships and brand money as well. Now that really, right,
absolutely.
That's where it's going to hit right there. Right when let Nike take that money away from him. I tell you what he'll do with all them guns. Let Nike take that money away from him.
And at some point, it's like, why? They just have a simple rule. We're going out tonight, right? There's 4 of us. We got our phones. Let's put some nail polish over the lens of our camera for the night. So nobody. I mean, just stop. I mean, stop the video. I mean, other than the video,
better yet, Burt. Better yet, why don't the 4 guys have guns and you don't need a gun? You're the bag. You don't have to do it. You don't have to have a gun. You sit in the middle. We surround you. Nothing's gonna happen. You'll be protected. You're fine. I think that's the part I'm not getting with Ja. Like, and it's cruel. If you was part of my crew, Burt, you was a $50 million man, and we had to hang out with you. I promise you, as long as I'm getting a piece of that and we cooling and we rocking, nothing's happening to Burt.
You're not doing
even
nothing.
though you can protect yourself. Whatever happened to Burt's gonna happen to me first.
Listen,
then it goes.
And here's the other drink. Yeah, and the reality is, I mean, you have to be real. If anything goes down, Ja ain't gonna do nothing. I mean, the dude that's gonna shoot you, he ain't got different color braids on and listening, dancing to rap. I mean, and making Instagram videos. Why do you got the gun? You ain't gonna shoot nobody. You're gonna get
That's
tapped.
what I'm saying.
The guy that's gonna shoot isn't doing all that. He's for real, and he's not. Ja's not. That's not him.
That's true.
He's putting an act on.
That's true. Seen a lot of social media posts saying exactly that, right? Don't be walking up and down the court flashing gang signs when you don't live that life. Don't be out here brandishing weapons when you don't really live that life. Don't get caught up into that. So I just wish him better, to be honest with you, and he should do better. We'll see what happens though, man. Don't mess around. Look again. Let Nike call and say we through with you, and I bet he straighten up then, and then he'll stop using. Go ahead. I was gonna say he'll stop.
No,
using,
but I'm saying, well, like I think, like Burt said, if you made $50 million the following year, maybe that money's like, hey, I done made enough money. I could just go fade off to the sunset. I just like you said, if you act like a fake gangster, at some point you're gonna get into a real gangster situation.
Yeah,
that's where John's headed.
Well, look, he's using fake apologies. He's using ChatGPT to write his apology. He got called out today. This is sad right here, brother. Oh, word for word, verbatim, folks. Someone typed in, make an apology paragraph that you got caught again, and verbatim what Ja sent to the public spit out of ChatGPT. So the man put 2 seconds into his apology, and it wasn't even real. That's a shame. Pray for him, y'all. Pray for him. Not like getting you can't deny that now. You just straight caught. So we'll see what happens. We're gonna move on. We're gonna talk about some other things. You said you got a game coming up this week. Because talk a little bit about. I'm gonna bounce back a little bit back and forth, and then we'll go into the WNBA statement. But you said you got some games coming up on your side as well. How many
we got
teams are in the league?
Teams in the league, I think there's 13 or 14.
Okay.
And so we play 16, 17 games, and then we have a couple of bye weeks. This week we played Duke City, which is Albuquerque. But we play them here. Following week we go to Frisco. Last week we were in Green Bay. So they're kind of all over the place, the teams. They're pretty much spread out all over the country. So either they travel here.
When's the game, man? Listen, I told you I'm going to be there this weekend. When's the game?
Once y'all come Sunday, man, I'll put you in my VIP section.
Watch your tone now. Hey, watch your tone now. Okay, listen, we can stop the show right
now. Bring your buck knife. I'll take Instagram video.
Folks, Steve don't sleep.
We're gonna brandish them when we come out there. Yeah, we got it.
We
Sunday. Let's make that.
All right, bring your buck. We'll make videos, man.
Okay. This is what we make that happen, Jay.
Listen, this is what we're doing. So there'll be 3 of us because I'll have my cameraman, and I got the video personality, Montel Allen. I'm just there, the guy to eat all the food. I'm gonna make sure that the hot dogs are good. I'm gonna mess around and streak on the field and see if I get taken out by security. But appreciate that, Coach. We'll definitely.
I'll get you all access pass. You go wherever you want.
Man, watch it.
Oh yeah. See, look, we make it move.
Speaking into existence, Lord, 2023, we doing things. So appreciate that, sir. We don't want to take that for granted. So we will definitely do that and do something special for the community. Next,
you know what though, real quick. Yeah. I have because he comes to the games. You remember from Last Chance U, Jason Brown?
Yes.
Yeah.
The coach.
So I'm gonna introduce you to him. He'd be great on your show. You'd love to have him. He's great.
You know who that is, right, James?
I do. Listen, I put him. We don't have to. You don't have to say that 2 times. Listen, I'll even shave and make sure I'm presentable for that. But yeah, that's gonna be cool. That's what it's all about. Like Senior say, wow, yeah, we. That's my dad, right? Dad, you better get you an airline ticket. You can fly down and meet me in San Diego because we gonna be doing some big things with the San Diego teams out there.
Strike Force. Yeah, Strike Force.
Talking about leagues, talking about players, talking about issues going on within various leagues and things of that nature. We got this situation, and I kind of want to get your opinion, Coach, about Becky Hammon's suspension, WNBA, right? So I'm not sure if you heard the story, but one of her players.
I know, sir.
Okay, so for the community, one of her players, Derica Hamby, got pregnant, had another child. So congratulations to her on that. But there was some conversation. We don't know all the conversation that happened behind the scenes with her coach, with Coach Hammond and Becky about commitment to the team and not getting pregnant and being available to the team kind of thing. So there was some conversation about that, and there seems to be some issues with. Um, I'm looking for the exact word, right? Just what was the word that they suspended? Yeah, they suspended Coach Hammond for. Um, what are your thoughts when it comes to these kinds of situations, right? You got a player out here who looking at resigning for an extension. They've got a family issue that happens. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But again,
No.
you got the coach that's probably having some behind the curtain conversations with the player, trying to keep them in line where the team is going. Comes to find out she may have overstepped her bounds. How do you manage that again from a front office perspective when it comes to your players, your coaches, and things like that, of what you can and can't do when it comes to
Yeah.
contract negotiations?
You know what's hard? I mean, see, take Becky Hammond. I mean, she's not that far removed as a player. Sports, WNBA, everybody's changed so much in the last 4 years, or whether it's being woke or anything else, that you get somebody like her that was a WNBA player. She played maybe, 20, 30 years ago? She played like 2000 around there, or 90. I mean, we get this transition, and I remember this when the whole concussion thing came up. It took me 2 or 3 years, just not to, literally 2 or 3 years after. And Junior Sales was my best friend, but it took me 2 or 3 years every time a dude would come out with a concussion not to say pussy or you're a pussy or because we could never do that. I mean, that was just off limits. But I mean, you're so conditioned over your life and the game and the culture of the game. I mean, you're telling somebody like me or like her that played the game, because back in her day, if you wanted to have kids, you had to wait till you retired in WNBA. You weren't having them and getting leave, whether it's wrong or not. That's the culture she spent 50 years in, and all of a sudden we want her to change that culture within a 1 or 2 or 3 year span because we decided it's okay or it should be this way, which is right. But nobody's training them. Nobody's giving these coaches grace to make that transition. It's just it happens. You're handling it the way you've handled it, the way you've been taught to handle it, the way it was handled for you, everybody before you for the last 50 years, and all of a sudden you're vilified for it, which rightly so. I guess, she didn't make the transition quick enough, but I don't think it's something that she intended to be this malicious, horrible person, or else no player would play for her, and she wouldn't be as highly regarded as she is in basketball, both NBA and WNBA. I just think it's a cultural thing that's just hard. It's hard to make that transition when you've been stuck with that and you've been learned that for 50 years, your entire life, and programmed that way. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, now it's okay. You don't have to wait till off season to do it. Or now it's okay to say I have a concussion, I'm not feeling good, you can come out of the game. But we couldn't do that before, and you were conditioned to say, I never even heard the word concussion, but I'm just saying, I'm using an example. It just came so quick that was most of the players before would be like, that dude's a pussy. Is he leaving right now and missing the whole fourth quarter because he got hit in the head? But as time goes on, you accept it and you see that it's reasonable. And like I said, this is after my best friend committed suicide before, and I still was like, this pussy's leaving the game. But it took 2 or 3 years for that transition to come on for me, as I'm sure it did with Becky Hammond, but she's just not there yet, obviously. Or when it took place, she wasn't there yet because it's still a year or two ago. But yeah, I don't know if she should be brandished from the sport. I think she probably learned her lesson. She handled it the way it's always been handled by in regards to her and everybody else in the league for all time. It's changed now, and she just didn't change as quick as it did.
Have we changed too much? Are we getting too? I don't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it. Are we getting too soft?
Let me go with that. Let me go with that.
You got
Yeah.
something
Bro,
on
let
your
me go
mind.
with
Go
that.
ahead, brother.
Yeah.
I think I don't think there's anything wrong with her having the conversation with that player. There's nothing. We've come to a point where people hate to be critiqued and criticized, and criticized about their situation. Now, maybe she overstepped her bounds and was out of line, talking about maybe family and stuff like that, because that kind of crosses a sports line. Maybe that. But there is nothing wrong with her having these conversations with her, saying, "Hey, we need you to be here. We really can't afford you. We really wish you didn't get pregnant because we needed you." There's nothing wrong with that conversation. That's not crossing the line. That's having a one-on-one adult conversation like we have at work, in our normal workplaces. If there's something going on and our boss wants to address it, they address it. They don't skate around it. They have to address it because they have to figure out what the next move is and what the next plan is. I think we're at a point right now, cancel culture is so quick to point the finger at anything that some of them, not majority, just some of them don't agree with. So they want to point it out. I don't think they should have suspended her. I think it should have been something they just had to talk to her about. Maybe they made it a public forum where they talked to her about it and asked her questions. and talk about it and get things out in the open. We keep keeping things behind closed doors and we can't learn from them. I don't think there's anything wrong with her transition. She handled it the way anybody in a position of power will handle it. If you, Burt, let's go to you, Burt. If you had a player that was in a family dynamic situation that was causing disruption to the team, you would have to have a conversation to address it.
Yeah.
Now, whether you may cross the line, maybe you may say a little thing that may be improper or anything like that, that's fine. Those are correctable things. But those are the things that you need to be cut a paycheck from or be suspended from. I don't feel that's the necessary. Go ahead.
Yeah, but you gonna get in trouble and draw the line when it comes to when and where you're allowed to have a child. You can't even broach
Well,
that.
I'm not saying. Yeah, I think that's crossing. I say going pro, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Hey, I wish you wouldn't have had a child right now. We really needed you as a basketball player. I'm sorry, but we really wanted you." I think that speaks to she wanted the value of that player. Now, because you may say, "Well, she shouldn't tell me I shouldn't have a child." Well, she didn't say you should have a child. She just wished you didn't at this time because we had the season going on. I don't think there's anything with having those conversations, whether I agree or disagree. It's not that left wing. I didn't call you out of your name. I didn't disrespect you. I didn't say anything. I had a conversation with you, what I wish you would have done or not have done. There's nothing wrong with that. That's called an opinion. That's the definition of an opinion. Why are people so damn sensitive over other people's opinion? It's not that serious to suspend someone.
We are soft.
I can't see it. I'm blurred vision. I can't see it.
We soft
can't
as
see
hell.
why. Who, me?
We soft.
Oh yeah, we're soft.
I ain't saying you soft. Yeah, this team no soft. But back to that. Yeah, we're soft. We're soft.
Yeah. That's just being sensitive.
Yeah. No, we're sensitive on everything. Look at Ukraine. Look at what's going on in Sudan. Look what's going on around the world. Israel. We're worried about pronouns and drag queens reading and shit. That's what we worry about here. Yeah, we're soft as hell. No, seriously. Or a dude drag on a shitty beer can. I wouldn't drink that beer. I don't care who's on there. But that's the shit we worry about every single day. That's what we worry about in this country. That's what we argue about in the news. That's what we worry about. The whole time. And Russia's about to, send a nuclear bomb to end this war probably because they're getting their ass whooped. And we're worried about drag queens. And we're worried about you called me out of my pronoun and you didn't let me use that bathroom. It's like we did the stupidest shit, man. It's stupid. Because no one wants to get up and say, no one wants to say no or have that. Like you said, no one wants to have that conversation. They want to have it, but they're all scared to have it.
Yeah.
Where you used to be able to have
James?
it and you have to be scared.
James, you're mute.
I'm over here just grinning and smiling and saying that's the reason for Team No Sleep, right? To having these social impact of sports conversations, these awkward conversations that no one else is having, right? The ESPNs, the Foxes, the CBSs, no one else is having conversations about that and about the things that we've been talking about thus far. And Montel and I try to figure out why, right? Is it because it's not sexy or because it's contentious? Is it because it causes folks to think? And those would be the reasons that I would think you want to have those conversations, right? So you talked about, you mentioned, Coach, about the transgender thing. We've had that conversation for months, for years. And now it's coming to light, right? Because again, you've got all these athletes who are now identifying as something else, someone else. And here come the Olympics. Here come the biggest stage on the globe for athletics. And now we're starting to see the Olympics starting to say, you know what? No, if you weren't born this way, you can't compete on the other team. And folks are getting irate, upset, and agitated about that. But let's go into that. Let's go and peel that in the back if you want to have that conversation.
I'm
because
good
again,
with that. Isn't division the agenda? That's what. Look, you played sport. Everybody plays sports. There's no better race relations, social, whatever than a locker room. Take a football locker room.
Yeah.
And you can go back 40 years before when it was supposed to be horrible in relations. And it didn't matter what color you were in a football locker room or a football field. It didn't. You saw somebody every day. You dealt with them every day. You knew what kind of character they were. If they said a word didn't mean anything. What they did or their actions towards you was what meant something. We all said stuff. We all joked. The joke was a joke then. It wasn't an offensive end of the world.
Come on
you knew
now.
that person. But that isn't the way anybody wants to do it now. It just wants to be division. So no, I mean, division is what they want, and division is what they get. I mean, if it's it's not black against white, it's Republican against Democrat. If it's not that, it's always something. It always has to be against somebody. But I just never saw that. And with sports, you just don't. It's something different. You don't see it with sports. You really don't. I mean, there's always one dude everybody hates. Yeah, that's that's given. But in a locker room, there was no. I mean, there was no racist. Even you remember the goofy hillbilly white offensive lineman from Timbuktu, wherever, he wasn't even racist. It's like where are all these people at, man? That I keep seeing on TV, like marching. Like, where do these people come from? So yeah, I don't know why we're not having the conversation, but nobody wants to have the conversation. We'd rather let a man swim against women and take the gold medal. It's easier than having the conversation.
Wow.
Let that marinate.
Is it easier to have a conversation?
Right there. Let that marinate right there, folks.
What's easier? You want to have that conversation, or you want to watch a dude beat a bunch of girls with a bulge in his one piece? We would rather do that than have a conversation. Seriously. Then have the conversation. That's what we're willing to do now, rather than have this conversation. It's insane.
And that's funny because we are willing to have that conversation because we want. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it. Definitely, but there is an audience, or there are people out there that feel that it's supposed to be okay. And like you said, I think division was the purpose of it. That's why we have men and women, to make sure there is no competitive advantage when you compete. You're the biological sex, you go ahead and compete. Now we're coming to again this era of people, like you said, the transgendering either from man to woman, woman to man, and they want to compete at these different levels. And we have seen when a woman becomes a man and tries to compete in some of these competitive sports, they get dominated just because of the physical nature. Like the MMA person, she tried to fight another man, she got a blood, she got beat very bad. But now we have men trying to go and compete at women, and he's dominating in college swimming, or dominating in college basketball, trying to play some college basketball. And like you said, we're willing to turn the other cheek instead of just addressing it or saying no. I don't get where no became such a bad thing to do. No,
I'll tell you what's going to happen.
Yes,
but and then that's what Becky Hammond needs to do. She needs to get a bunch of transgender switchovers, and then she don't have to worry about pregnancy, anybody leaving, nothing like that, and everybody's happy. No, but I'm kidding. But you're right. Nobody says no. But when do people? You're right. No one says no to anybody anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, why even have the Olympics? Why even have Olympic trials anymore? It's not fair, man. I mean, why do anything that's any competitive, anything that's competition anymore?
Wow.
I mean, is it going to be 20 years now? There's no competition anymore. Everybody gets a gold medal at the Olympics.
Everybody gets a participation trophy.
Yeah,
I can't even say the word.
When did that start? That's been the biggest cultural killer of anything, I think. Participation trophies.
Yeah. I'm not understanding our mindset where we just can't say no and can't acknowledge. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. If you can turn away black people from drinking at a drinking fountain at the day, turn them away from eating at restaurants, not allowing them to go different places just because of the color of skin, I don't understand why mass society has a problem telling someone that's a transgender that no, you can't compete against another woman or you can't compete in this other thing. Right or wrong, it happens. You said no before. Now all of a sudden you can't say no. I'm not understanding why you can't have that conversation. And I don't have no problem with anybody, but I do think fair is fair. If you're transgender and you're trying to compete in that person's sport, especially a man becoming a woman trying to compete in a woman's sport, you have an unfair advantage. And I don't understand why people don't want to see that. That's like having a heavyweight fighter that's 300 pounds fighting somebody that weighs 110. It's an unfair advantage. Doesn't matter.
Or why do we even test for PEDs anymore? If we're going to let that happen, let everybody take steroids again. That's basically what you're doing. I mean, it is what it is. You can be a man, but you can't take steroids. I mean, you can be a man and compete against women, but you can't take steroids to compete against a man. It's like, where's the stop?
Yeah.
Listen, what I love about this right now is that, Montel and I can talk about this all we want. We can be the armchair quarterbacks, but Coach, you bring kind of you bring additional credibility to these conversations because, again, you have been in that locker room because you have been in that front office. You're in that front office, right? And probably have to have this conversation. I'm not sure if you're going to have this conversation with the football league or not, but maybe you will. right? But again, you bring a whole different mindset and insight to this, and I see I'm getting some text messages, and the audience is vibing with this, so loving what we're talking about. I'm gonna tell everybody to go get this book again. Listen, I'm gonna put it
Oh,
up.
come on, man.
I'm gonna put this book back on the screen here. Y'all go get this man's book, man. I won't
You
even
gonna
use
get me
my
canceled, man. You didn't read that book. I'm gonna get canceled now.
yeah. See, I may go get it and read it and be like, wait a minute, hold on.
Wait a minute now. Hold up.
Back in '96, Grossman was on
Yeah.
some other things. Okay, I won't do that. I
I
tell
got
you
a whole
what,
chapter about Janet Jackson.
that's it.
I got a whole chapter about Janet Jackson in there. It was the 90s, man. Come on.
Oh my god. 5 stars, 5 stars. Great book. This isn't just you. This isn't your family that did the reviews on it, though. Okay, I won't get it. I won't do you like that. I won't do you like that. I want to be cognizant of your time,
Donald
though,
Trump. Donald Trump Jr. Look at that. Oh, Tucker Carlson.
Hilarious. I want to be cognizant of your time, Coach. I appreciate you for coming on. Was there anything that you want? We bounced over a couple of things, right? We talked about the job stuff. We talked about sports with NIL. Talked about civil liberties and things like that with the WNBA situation, gun violence, and mandates around that. Was there anything that you wanted to specifically talk about before we cut you loose and let you get back to your lovely evening down there in San Diego?
No, I think we covered a lot. I'm all right. I'm good. Unless you got some more questions.
I got one for you.
Man, go ahead, man. Listen,
right,
we can talk all we want. I told you the tape is infinite. We can go.
Best O lineman you faced.
Larry Allen or Eric Allen. I mean, not Eric Allen. Yeah, who's that? Eric Williams next to him. Larry Allen and Eric Williams. That was talking about the Emmitt Smith thing. You want to talk about the running back list?
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But you know what's funny? I went against Larry Allen myself.
Man, that dude.
I played against Larry Allen myself when I played at Humboldt. He was at Sonoma State. There's a film that David Jeremiah leaked out where I didn't get pancaked, but he got me pretty good on the force coming downhill, and he rolled me a little bit. But I will admit, I haven't found the film yet. But I caught Larry Allen once. I caught him. I stoned his butt on the line one time in our win over Sonoma. But that's crazy that I played against what arguably the greatest offensive lineman, and my man Burt Grossman played against him as well. So that's pretty cool.
I would say it was. How'd you stone him? You had Josh Gunn?
Nah, man. Hey, man, don't trip. I was small, but I used to pack a little punch. So it was a pull. It was a pull. He lifted up, down tackle block down. He lifted up and came around the corner. I caught him right before he came around the corner. Like right when he was about to turn, I got him. So to make the force play, to make the rush play go back inside.
Don't let me find that video. Don't let me.
It only happened once, though. Hey, I played him for 3 years, man. It only happened once. So I got him once out of 200 plays I played against him.
Whenever he was pulling, I would purposely misread the play and not be where I was supposed to be when he was pulling. That dude was a monster, man.
It was a beast, man. And I mean, you can imagine us playing at the division. That's funny. People don't understand. Larry Allen played the Division II level at Sonoma. Obviously, he was a Division I fullback. Played at D2 All American. Dude was just one of the most gifted guys I know. And cool. He was really cool too. He was a beast on the field, but after the game, he was a nice dude. Always gave everybody his props. But people don't know. He came from Sonoma State Division II in our conference. Good ass player. Proud of that one. I'm glad I got the chance to go against him. So good stuff, man.
I wish I didn't.
He was getting paid to kick you guys' ass. He was just kind of just rolling with us playing, bro. So
yeah, that's true. He was.
I get it. Top running backs, James. Put that up. What's the top running backs?
Okay, let's see who we got, because we already talked about number one, and I think we all kind of agree with number one. So top 10 NFL running backs of all time. And the list is all right. Let's start with number one.
Who you replacing?
Number one is going to stay number one. Number one is going to stay Barry.
Yeah.
So here, number two, they got Mr. Jim Brown.
Jim Brown. I might put Peyton ahead of him.
They got Sweetness there. This gentleman right here. Okay. Listen.
All right, I'm just gonna hold you up for a second. Hold up real quick. If
Yeah.
I was to put Emmitt Smith, if I was to put Eric Dickerson behind Emmitt Smith line and switch these two offensive lines, what do you think would happen?
Eric Dickerson would have ran for 3,597 yards and 150 touchdowns
in 3 games. That's the only problem I got. Emmitt's great, but I mean, if you take
that's kind of where I was leaning, right? I mean, yeah, Emmitt's tight, but come on now, that's the. I know our Cowboy fans. I know we got a couple of them listening and watching right now. He not that dope. He was good, but come on.
No.
So it goes Barry, Jim, Walter, Emmett, Eric Dickerson, AP, Adrian Peterson, Marshall Faulk, Franco Harris. You know I love me some Franco Harris because it's gonna go Steelers. Curtis Martin and LT, Medallion Tomlinson. All right.
So I got LT right behind Marshall Faulk, or with Marshall Faulk ahead of Franco and Curtis Martin.
Me too. And where's Thurman Thomas on this list?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I might have to take Franco off there and put Thurman Thomas on.
You know.
Yeah. Thurman Thomas should be on that list.
Blyer?
I know such a short span, Bo Jackson, but such a short. Marcus Allen should be on the list as well. I hate to say it. Marcus Allen should be on the list.
What about Rocky Blyer?
Yeah, we're going to go back that far. Yeah,
you flashing back now.
But this is more of a fullback, right? Blyer's more of a fullback.
Yeah. He was good though.
And my thing is,
you know, we talk about that. That dude goes to Vietnam, steps on a mine, rehabs for 2 years, and then goes to plays for the Steelers and does all that. So you guys are getting soft now? Yeah, we soft compared to them.
So
can't make
that up.
Can't make that up.
If this is based on numbers, alone.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
People don't want to say it. I hate to say it, but Roger Craig was the only player that received for 1,000 yards and rushed for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. Why is his name not on there? He's not even mentioned in anyone's top 20. But Roger Craig was the best probably all-around back. Him and LaDainian Tomlinson and Thurman Thomas were the 3 best all-around backs catching and receiving the ball.
I might have Tony Dorsett on there too.
Ooh, come on now. I like that.
I might put him on there.
Gold Talk Sports reached out. They tweeted Coach earlier today and was calling them on the carpet about this, and we said, "Listen, come on the show because we gonna talk about it." I don't know if they're here right now, but you know we held up our side of it, and we questioned the that's a good one.
What I mean, this is what I'm saying.
What about Curtis? What about Warner from Seattle? Kurt Warner from Seattle.
He was sure, Penn State. This is the problem though I have with that. You take Tony Dorsett. I think Tony Dorsett's game back then would transfer and he'd be able to play now. I don't think Franco Harris would make the XFL right now, as far as speed, everything else. So I mean, you have to look at it. Franco was great, but if you took Franco today, he wouldn't make anybody's practice squad. I still think Tony Dorsett would be good to this day. His game back then and now translates.
So you said players that transcended from back then to now. Okay, I got you. Okay, we're doing that list. It's a different list. It's definitely
the Jim Brown list. Even. I think Jim Brown will still be an great NFL running back in today's game.
But I think my biggest miss on this whole list is Earl Campbell.
You're right. You're right.
Who you pulling to put Earl on here?
Obviously, Franco would be out. Me personally, as much as I like Emmett is the number 10. Emmett's only on it because of stats. He's not because he was the most dynamic running back. He had the greatest offensive line ever assembled, and he was able to put stats behind that.
Yeah.
Someone like Earl
164 touchdowns. So okay, so this is pretty much all based on numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, Earl Campbell was just a beast with no line. He was like Eric Dickerson, a beast with no line, and be able to do amazing things.
If you 40 years later, 45 years later, and kids are still checking out your videos on YouTube. You one of the greatest of all time. Ain't nobody gonna be looking at Curtis Martin's videos now, let alone 40 years from now. But Earl Campbell, they're still pulling them up.
That's true. Nobody's wearing a Martin jersey right now. Nobody's wearing a Martin.
Nah, and he went to Pitt, so I love him because he went to Pitt. But come on, and he played Braxton all still.
There's a few that you, like I said, that you would leave off. I definitely like Earl Campbell is one guy that should be on the list. Definitely, 100%, especially over Franco Harris, in my opinion. All the difference between Franco Harris won the Super Bowl and made the catch, Earl Campbell didn't win anything. But the numbers don't lie.
Come on, man. That's like saying Trent Dilfer is better than Dan Marino because he got a Super Bowl.
Oh man,
Ooh.
don't even get me started on the top quarterbacks. Trent Dilfer shouldn't be.
Well, so the question was asked by David Hunt. He said you guys ain't talking about my dude TB12 for quarterbacks. After him, what's the QB top 10 of all time? So we ought to do a running segment of kind of our Mount Rushmores of who we think.
Oh,
Trent
quarterback.
Dilfer
You know
is not on that list. Trent Dilfer is not on that list.
We had, Paul and I had Warren Moon on the show and Jim McMahon. And the one thing they talk about, not taking Brady away, but they're like, if we had those rules where you couldn't jam our receivers and you could not touch us, you couldn't even put a hand above our waist, the numbers they could have put up would have been astronomical. I mean, you're talking about like Marino and Warren Moon and these guys. I mean, they put up those numbers where you're getting jammed for 10 seconds straight. You're not even allowed to touch anybody off the line now. And they're getting their heads taken off. And it's crazy to think like what some of those guys that were pure passers could do now with the different rule changes as far as handicapping the defenses now, because there was no fantasy football. Nobody cared who scored. It was who covered the spread.
I think now one thing I do think with Brady, why I think he's one of the best ever to do it, is because he's of his test of longevity, right? He's been through all those eras. He's been through the era where they were doing that all the way to the era till now, and that's why he's successful. That's the long. His biggest asset is longevity. It's not his skill play. I don't think it's a skill play because he's a product of a system. Brady's great because of Belichick's system, not because he was just the greatest quarterback. The greatest quarterbacks, like you said, I think Patrick Mahomes is way more skillful than Brady on any day.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
He's more skillful than Brady.
Look at even the draft line, right? Look where Brady was drafted, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't see it from the beginning, but worked his way into being who he is.
He's a product of a system. But I mean, if we're gonna talk about, if we say GOATs, Joe Montana, obviously. People always forget about Terry Bradshaw. I don't care what nobody say. 4 Super Bowls, one of the greatest. If you're gonna go stat wise, it's Marino, and then obviously Brady, and then you got then you can take your soup of anybody who the great ones are because they go in order. Peyton Manning's and all those guys. But
you just had this conversation, didn't say John Elway?
No, I said you can take them in any order how you want to go at that point. Yeah, Elway should be in there, no doubt about it. Elway's one of the greatest to do it. But I mean, quarterback is so subjective, man, because it's all about system where you play, and I honestly think longevity. You got to play in the league a long time because the flash in the pants comes every once in a while. But that longevity, that's what sets everyone apart. And Brady's been able to do it longer and better than anybody. That's the only reason why he's number one.
And that's the one part. That's why they miss at the combine with somebody like Brady, because you don't have a test on how slow the game is for that dude and how quick he processes everything on the defense. Yes. You can't measure that. So you just wait and see, and then you see somebody that just the game's like in slow motion for him. He processes everything like that, and the ball's out. He doesn't have to have the cannon that Marino has because he doesn't hit those. The windows aren't that small because he sees it before it happens.
Exactly. Now, hey, last one because we're getting late. The last question: top 5 D linemen. So you, Burt, because that's your expertise. Who's the top 5 D linemen?
Reggie White's one.
Okay.
Wow. Because I always go between Darnold, Aaron Donald or Reggie White, and then you kind of go. But then Aaron Donald, I know Lawrence Taylor's what's his name, a linebacker, but I always throw him in there. I liked it that I don't think it is Charles Haley. I thought it was great.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. I think what little Cowboys love.
Yeah. It's great. Mine are all from the same era. Jerome Brown, but he didn't get to play long enough. That dude would have been amazing.
Philly D tackle, yeah.
Yeah, and then I would say Bruce Smith.
Okay.
See,
you got to remember, all the dudes I named have to play the run and pass rush. Now you either play the run or you pass rush.
Correct.
Those dudes did both.
Where would you put Derek Thomas in? Are you consider him as an outside linebacker or a DN?
He was outside linebacker. He was in the same draft as my draft was Aikman, Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, Deion Sanders. So they're all like the same. So I've been seeing them play since freshman year in college on film. So yeah, I get a lot of them. But he was more outside backer. He was like 235-ish.
Okay.
But he
Okay.
wasn't
Okay.
he wasn't walking up on first and 10 or second and 10 and lining head up on anybody. He was coming off the corner at third down.
Well, you said Lawrence Taylor, so I had to throw Derek Thomas in there. Everybody, that's he's number 2 after LT, I believe, when it comes to the outside, that hybrid guy outside.
And Micah Parsons now is pretty good too. I like him.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's a good.
Yeah, Micah's he's a bad man. He's a bad man.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I see the sun is going down there in San Diego.
Yeah, I'm getting dark.
Listen, and the battery's probably running down on the laptop. I'm gonna say this before Martell does. Hey, Coach, appreciate you. We're gonna do this again.
Thank you.
This
Anytime.
This is pretty cool. Yeah, this was pretty cool just to get your perspective as well, because we can chop it up all we want, and we do, but to have another perspective, again, front office, locker room, all that kind of thing. I think that really brings value, credibility, like I said before, to our discussion. So, Montel Allen, take us home now, brother.
Oh man, everyone, please get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. Tune in to Team No Sleep. Burt, thank you for coming out, man. I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you for having me. I'll hook you up the passes. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll text you.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I ain't gonna forget about that.
All right.
We out.
All right.